I never thought it would happen to me. Infidelity, such a harsh word, one that always seemed so distant, so foreign, like something that happened to someone else. But there I was, at a work party, caught in a whirlwind of emotions I wasn't prepared for. It started out like any other event. Drinks, laughter, a bit of small talk. We were all colleagues, familiar faces, people I had worked with for years. Nothing unusual. At least, that's what I told myself at first. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere changed. The music grew louder, the crowd more relaxed, and somewhere in that shift, something inside me stirred. I had always been the responsible one, the one who stuck to the rules, who honored the vows I made to my husband. I loved him, I always had. We had built a life together. Our home, our routines, our quiet moments that felt more intimate than anything else. But that night felt different. I don't know when it started, but suddenly, I was aware of their eyes on me. 3 of my colleagues. They had always been friendly, maybe even a little flirtatious, but tonight, it was different. They weren't just being playful. There was something in their gaze, something deeper. I felt a rush of heat in my chest, an undeniable pull toward them, like a force I couldn't ignore. At first, I tried to shake it off. I told myself it was nothing, just a passing moment, just a few drinks too many. But with each passing hour, their attention grew bolder. They weren't subtle anymore. There was a quiet, almost unspoken agreement between us, a tension in the air that made my pulse race. And I hated myself for it. I hated that I couldn't just turn it off, that I was drawn in by it. I had never felt this way before. It wasn't that I wasn't happy with my husband. I was. But in that moment, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit for a long time. There was a part of me that wanted more. Not from him. He was everything I needed. But from life. From myself. There was a yearning I hadn't acknowledged. One of them, Alex, was the first to step closer. He was charming, confident, and the way he looked at me, it made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in a while. His smile was easy, his words playful, but there was something behind them, something I couldn't quite name but felt deep in my gut. The others followed suit, pulling me deeper into their orbit, and before I knew it, I was laughing with them, caught up in their attention and the chemistry building around us. It felt exciting, thrilling even. For the first time in a long time, I felt desired. It was intoxicating. And for a brief moment, I thought about the consequences, but only briefly. There was something in my mind, some voice, that told me this was just one of those things that happened. Just an innocent bit of fun, something to forget by morning. But I couldn't stop myself. And even worse, I didn't want to. I never imagined it would go this far. What started as an innocent flirtation, something I could have brushed off, had now spiraled into something unrecognizable. I felt trapped between 2 worlds. My loyalty to my husband, the life we'd built, and the heady excitement of something forbidden, something that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. Alex was still by my side, his presence growing more intense, more insistent. He had this energy that was hard to ignore. Every glance, every casual touch made my heart race faster. I tried to remind myself that it was just a game. People flirt, people joke around at work parties. It meant nothing, nothing at all. But then I felt the others moving closer, each one adding to the tension, to the charged air around us. I excused myself, needing space to breathe, to collect my thoughts. But it didn't help. Everywhere I went, they followed. It was as if they were drawn to me, like I was a magnet, and I couldn't stop myself from being pulled into their orbit. I felt the pull of desire again, but this time it was stronger. More urgent. More real. I wasn't just drawn to the attention. They weren't just flattering me. They were offering something I didn't realize I needed. And I hated myself for it. When I glanced around the room, the world felt blurry. The laughter seemed distant. But when I looked at Alex, and then the others, it all sharpened. They weren't just colleagues anymore. They were possibilities, and suddenly, that felt like something I couldn't resist. "You okay?" Alex asked, his voice low, a hint of something more in it. I nodded, but I knew I wasn't okay. My thoughts were clouded. My body was on fire. We ended up outside on the balcony. The cold night air didn't do much to calm my racing heart. I could feel my pulse in my neck, in my chest, every beat urging me to do something I knew I shouldn't. "You've been so quiet tonight," Alex said, stepping closer. I couldn't remember how we got here, but it didn't matter. He reached for my hand, his fingers brushing mine, and the spark was immediate. My breath hitched. This was no longer just harmless fun. You're beautiful, you know that. His words slid over me like silk, smooth and warm. They made me shiver. For a moment, I considered stopping him. I thought about my husband, about the vows I had taken, the trust we shared. I thought about how much I loved him, how much I didn't want to hurt him. But all of that seemed so far away, like a distant memory I couldn't hold on to. I leaned in closer to Alex, feeling the heat of his body next to mine. I don't know what's happening, I whispered, almost to myself. He smiled, his hand brushing the side of my face. You're just living in the moment, he said softly. Don't overthink it. And in that moment, I didn't. I didn't think about the consequences, about the life I'd built, or the man I loved. I just felt. I felt the warmth of his lips on mine, the way his hands moved over my skin. It wasn't just physical. It was a rush, a release of all the tension I hadn't known I was carrying. It didn't stop there. The next few hours blurred together. I was lost in it, lost in the feeling of being wanted, desired. The guilt and shame I should have felt weren't there. Not yet. I was too caught up in the rush to notice them. There were 3 of them, and it all happened so quickly, so naturally. I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I wasn't thinking about my husband. I was just lost in the moment. The laughter, the touches, the thrill of it all. Each one of them seemed to offer something I had been missing, something I couldn't find at home, something I hadn't realized I craved. When it was over, when the music had died down and the laughter had faded into silence, I was left with a feeling I couldn't describe. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't joy. It was emptiness, and a terrible, gnawing sense of dread. What had I done? I couldn't answer that. I couldn't even face the question. Not yet. I woke up the next morning with a pounding headache and a hollow feeling in the pit of my stomach. The room was still dark, and the remnants of the party seemed so far away now, like a dream that I couldn't fully grasp. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and for a moment I just stared at it. I knew who it was before I even looked. It was him, my husband. I didn't want to pick up. I didn't want to hear his voice. Not right now, not after everything that had happened. The guilt was eating away at me, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. I didn't deserve to speak to him. I didn't deserve his trust. But I had to. I couldn't hide forever. I took a deep breath, wiped the sleep from my eyes, and grabbed my phone. Hey, I said, my voice sounding foreign even to me, flat and distant. Good morning, babe. He replied. How was the party? You okay? He sounded so normal, so innocent, like he had no idea what had happened the night before. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess, to apologize, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I smiled weakly into the phone, even though I was barely holding it together. It was fine, I said, my voice trembling just a little. I'm just tired, you know. Yeah, I figured, he replied. You've been working hard lately. You deserve to rest. How about we grab dinner tonight, just the 2 of us? The sweetness of his words made the guilt even harder to bear. How could I look him in the eye after what I'd done? How could I sit across from him at dinner, acting like nothing had changed, when everything had changed? I'll be home soon, I said, trying to sound reassuring, but inside I felt like I was falling apart. The rest of the day was a blur. I couldn't concentrate on anything. My mind kept replaying the events of last night. Alex, the others, the way they touched me, the way I responded. I couldn't erase it, no matter how hard I tried. I felt dirty, broken. I wasn't the person I thought I was. I wasn't the woman my husband believed I was. When I finally got home that evening, the first thing I did was shower. I scrubbed my skin like it would wash away the feeling of their hands on me. But it didn't. Nothing could. It was still there, lingering under the surface. I could still feel their eyes on me, hear their voices, smell the cologne they wore. It was all so vivid, so real, like a memory that wouldn't fade. When I walked into the kitchen, my husband was already there, setting the table. He smiled at me, that familiar, warm smile I loved so much. He didn't know. He couldn't know. How could I betray him like this? How could I do this to him? Everything okay? He asked, noticing the way I was standing, the way I was staring at him. He must have sensed something was off. But I couldn't tell him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Yeah, just tired, I said again, forcing a smile. It's been a long day. He didn't press further. He never did. He was always so patient, so understanding. I envied that about him. He was everything I could have ever wanted, and yet here I was, throwing it all away. Dinner passed in a haze. We talked about work, about nothing important. I didn't listen. I couldn't. All I could hear in my head was the sound of my heart beating too fast, too loudly, like it was trying to escape my chest. Every time he looked at me, I felt like he could see right through me, like he could tell what I had done. But he never said anything. He never asked. After dinner, I found myself sitting on the couch, my mind still racing. My husband was flipping through the channels on TV, completely unaware of the storm raging inside me. I wanted to tell him so badly, but what would I even say? How could I explain it? How could I make it right? The truth was, I couldn't. I had made a choice, and now I had to live with it. But what was I supposed to do with this guilt? With this overwhelming sense of regret? And what if I couldn't forgive myself? What if, deep down, I had already destroyed everything? The days after that night felt like I was walking through a fog. I was still here physically present, but mentally and emotionally I was lost. I kept going through the motions. Work, dinner, sleep, but everything felt like a performance, like I was playing a role I could no longer fully understand. The guilt gnawed at me constantly, and I could feel it in every moment I spent with my husband. Every smile, every kiss felt like a lie. Every time I looked into his eyes, I saw the person I had betrayed, and I couldn't shake the weight of that. I thought about confessing. I thought about telling him everything, about coming clean, but the fear was paralyzing. What would he say? Would he forgive me? Could he ever look at me the same way again? What would happen to us, to our marriage, to our life together? These questions spun around in my head, and I had no answers. Then one evening, a week after the party, something happened that I hadn't expected. My husband came home early from work. I was in the kitchen, pretending to prepare dinner, when I heard the front door open. "Hey, babe," he called, his voice light, but there was something in it, a change I couldn't place. "Hey, I thought you were working late tonight," I said, trying to keep my tone casual. "Yeah, about that." He trailed off, stepping into the kitchen. I looked at him, and for the first time in days, I felt a jolt of panic. There was something different about him, something unreadable in his eyes. "What's wrong?" I asked, my heart starting to race. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he placed his briefcase down on the counter and took a deep breath. "I know what happened last week, Alice." The blood drained from my face. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to faint. My mind scrambled for an explanation, for some way to deflect, to make this all go away. But I couldn't. How do you know?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. I could feel the tears threatening to spill, but I didn't want to break down in front of him. "Not yet. I know because I saw you," he said quietly. "I saw you with them. All three of them." I froze. The room felt like it was closing in around me. The reality of it hit me harder than anything else could. He knew. He had seen. The shame burned through me like fire. I couldn't even look at him. "I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt," he continued, his voice steady but low. "I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe you could do something like that. But I saw the way you were with them, her name. I saw the way you were looking at them." His words stung, but they were nothing compared to the agony of knowing I had betrayed him in such a fundamental way. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't just a slip up. This was something I couldn't undo, something I had no explanation for. "I'm so sorry," I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "I don't know what happened. I didn't mean for any of it to happen. I was confused. I was weak. And He held up his hand, stopping me. "I don't need an explanation. I don't need you to tell me why you did it. I just need you to be honest with me. And I need you to understand the consequences of what you've done." The weight of those words hit me like a ton of bricks. The consequences. What had I done to him? What had I done to us? There was no easy way out of this. There was no going back to how things were before. I looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw the pain in his eyes. It was raw, like a wound he didn't know how to heal. and it was all my fault. I don't know what to say. I whispered, my voice breaking. I wish I could take it all back. I wish I could erase everything. But I can't, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. There was a long silence between us. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I could see how much it was hurting him to even stand there, to confront this. Finally, he spoke again, but this time, his voice was quieter, almost sad. I don't know if I can forgive you, Alice. His words felt like a punch to my chest. I don't know if we can fix this. I nodded, the tears finally spilling over. I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me. Not right away. Maybe never. I felt a deep ache in my chest as I looked at him. The man I had loved so much, the man I had betrayed, standing in front of me. There was no escaping the reality of what I had done. The room felt colder now, and the silence stretched on, both of us lost in the weight of what had been said. He didn't walk away. He didn't yell. He just stood there, his expression unreadable, and for a long moment, neither of us moved. And for the first time since that night, I didn't feel the rush of desire or temptation. I didn't feel like I was someone else. I was just me. A woman who had made a mistake so deep, she wasn't sure she could ever find a way out of it,